Hey guys, thank you for meeting with us here today. You know, church has never been about a building, it's been about a group of people. And so I hope that although we're not meeting physically today at Oakland, that's okay. We're still meeting as a group through this, and then hopefully after this we'll be able to meet in Google Hangouts. But let's not think that church is over because of the coronavirus or because we're not meeting in a building. But the church is a group of people, and that's what we're doing here today. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks, when we're locked up inside, we'll still have some time like this. We're able to talk to each other and go to Google Hangouts and still make time for communication and still make time for community. Right now, we are on week 3 of our series called Doubt It, which is kind of talking about having doubts in God and what do we do with those. And I think this is very timely right now with the coronavirus. Or some of you might be wondering, how could we trust in a loving God who's going to allow a virus like this to possibly wipe out many people? And why would we put our trust in him? And hopefully through this series and through other times that we speak to God, we'll kind of find some good knowledge from him. So I'm going to go ahead and read to us Job 1:1-5. And this is going to be in the Message version. It says, Job was a man who lived in Uz. He was honest inside and out, a man of his word, who was totally devoted to God and hated evil with a passion. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He was also very wealthy, 7,000 head of sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 teams of oxen, 500 donkeys, and a huge staff of servants, the most influential man in all of the East. So he's got a lot of stuff. He's got a lot of kids, a lot of children. He's also got a lot of animals and stuff like that. His sons used to take turns hosting parties in their homes, always inviting their 3 sisters to join them in their merrymaking. That's so nice of them to invite their sisters. When the parties were over, Job would get up early in the morning and sacrifice a burnt offering for each of his children, thinking maybe one of them sinned by defying God inwardly. Job made a habit of this sacrificial atonement just in case they'd sinned. Now we're going to go ahead and skip a little bit further down to Job 1:6-2-10. One day when the angels came to report to God, Satan, who was the designated accuser, came along with them. God signaled out Satan and said, "What have you been up to?" Satan answered, "God, going here and there, checking things out on earth." God said to Satan, "Have you noticed my friend Job? There's no one quite like him, honest and true to his word, totally devoted to God and hating evil." Satan retorted, "So do you think Job does all that out of sheer goodness of his heart? Why, no one ever had it so good. You pamper him like a pet. Make sure nothing bad ever happens to him or his family or his possessions. You bless everything he does. He can't lose. But what do you think would happen if you reached down and took away everything that is his? He'd curse you right to your face. That's what." God replied, "We'll see. Go ahead and do what you want with all that is his. Just don't hurt him." Then Satan left the presence of God. Sometime later, while Job's children were having one of their parties at the home of the oldest son, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing, the donkeys grazing in the field next to us when Sabeans attacked. They stole the animals and killed field hands. I'm the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened." While he was still talking, another messenger arrived and said, "Bolts of lightning." Okay, that's a little bizarre. "Bolts of lightning struck the sheep and the shepherds and fried them, burned them to a crisp. I'm the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened." While he was still talking, another messenger arrived and said, "Chaldeans coming from 3 directions raided the camels and massacred the camel drivers. I'm the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened." And again, while he was still talking, another messenger arrived and said, "Your children were having a party at the home of the oldest brother when a tornado swept in off the desert and struck the house. It collapsed on the young people and they died. I'm the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened." Wow, that is bizarre. In a tornado, what are they? Are they in Iowa or Kansas or something? So Job got to his feet, ripped his robe, shaved his head, then fell to the ground and worshipped. And this is what he said: "Naked I came from my mother's womb, naked I'll return to the womb of the earth. God gives, God takes. God's name be ever blessed." Not once through all this did Job sin. Not once did he blame God. Now let's go into chapter 2, which will have kind of a similar start to it, where One day when the angels came to report to God, Satan also showed up. So here he is again. God signaled out Satan saying, "And what have you been up to today?" Satan asked God, "Oh, going here and there, checking things out." Then God said to Satan, "Have you noticed my friend Job? There's no one quite like him, is there? Honest and true to his word, totally devoted to God and hating evil. He still has a firm grip on his integrity. You tried to trick me into destroying him, but it didn't work." Satan answered, "A human would do anything to save his life. But what do you think would happen if you reached down and took away his health? He'd curse you to your face. That's what." God said, "All right, go ahead. You can do what you like with him. But mind you, don't kill him." Satan left God and struck Job with terrible sores. Job was ulcers and scabs from head to toe. They itched and oozed so badly that he took a piece of broken pottery to scrape himself, then went and sat on a trash heap among the ashes. Wow, this guy has hit the very bottom. His wife said, "Still holding on to your precious integrity, are you? Curse God and be done with it." He told her, "You're talking like an empty-headed fool. We take the good days from God. Why not also the bad days?" Not once through all of this did Job sin. He said nothing against God. Wow. I bet all the sores and stuff that he had on his body were disgusting. And, they're oozing probably pus that smelled really bad, which is absolutely gross. I'm going to go ahead and summarize a little bit more what happens in Job. We see Job cry out to God. And he's asking, why? Why are you letting this happen to me? And he's questioning God for that. And then Job has 3 friends show up that are trying to be with him and help him through this time. And these 3 friends start off really well. They hang out with Job for a whole week where they don't say anything. All they do is cry and they feel sad and they're with Job. But then they start to kind of try to come up with their own solutions for what happened. And a couple of those things that they talk about, they go, "This is your fault. Maybe this is because of you, Job, because of something that you've done." Then they go into, "Your kids deserved it too. Maybe it's because of them that this is happening. It's because of what they did." And then later they go to, "Be thankful. God must be disciplining you for something. Be grateful it's not even worse." It's pretty terrible what his friends were saying to him, but don't we see this kind of happen in our everyday lives too? Don't we see ourselves trying to come up with reasons that bad things are happening to other people? Eventually Job looks to his friends and he says, "No, I didn't sin. I didn't deserve this. And even if I had, nothing I did would warrant this much suffering and this much disaster to happen in my life." And eventually Job calls out to God again and he's just like, "End it for me. I would rather die than experience what I am right now." And finally, God responds, and God speaks to Job through a whirlwind. What do you think God has to say? And we're actually going to watch a short video that kind of depicts that happening.
And Job is innocent.
He is. He's also on an emotional roller coaster. At some moments, he's very confident that God is still wise and just.
Yeah, in other moments, he's doubting God's goodness.
He even comes to accuse God of being reckless, unfair, and corrupt. So by the end of the dialogue, Job demands that God come and explain himself in person, and God does so. He comes in the form of a great storm cloud.
Now, God doesn't give Job a direct answer. He doesn't tell Job about the conversation with the Satan.
Yeah, he does something very different. He takes Job on a virtual tour of the universe. He shows Job how grand the world is, and he asks him if he's even capable of running it or understanding it, just for a day. He shows Job how much detail there is in the world, things that we might see every day, but really don't understand at all. But God does. He knows it all intimately. He pays attention to the beauty and operations of the universe in ways that we haven't even imagined and in places that we will never see.
Then to conclude, God shows Job 2 wondrous beasts and brags about how great they are.
Yeah, they are dangerous. I mean, they would kill you without even thinking about it. And God says they're not evil. They're actually a part of his good world.
And then that's it. That's God's whole defense. It's kind of weird. I mean, what was this all about?
It seems to be this. From Job's point of view, it looks like God is not just. But God's perspective is infinitely bigger. He's dynamically interacting with a whole universe of complexity when he makes decisions. And this is what God calls his wisdom.
So Job asking God to defend himself is actually kind of absurd.
He couldn't comprehend this kind of complexity even if he wanted to.
So where does this leave us?
Well, it leaves Job in a place of humility. He never learned why he suffered, and yet he's able to live in peace and in the fear of the Lord.
After all that, God never even really answered Job. And you think about how frustrating it must be for Job. Job asked why, and God didn't give him an answer. Instead, God said, I'm the creator. God said, I'm so much bigger than you. I'm so much more powerful than you. You're so much smaller than I am. I have such a higher perspective than you do. And all Job wanted was an answer, but instead what he got was an encounter with the creator. If you're dissatisfied with God's answer to Job, that's okay. In a lot of ways, I am too, because you don't like to think that this could just happen to someone. But just like we talked about 2 weeks ago, Job has questions about God as well. Job had doubts. And just like what we talked about last week, God does not shame you for having questions. God does not shame you for having doubts. It's okay to wonder. It's okay to ask questions. Now, in Job's story, we do learn something interesting, and that is God doesn't always answer our questions. At the end of Job's story, God eventually gives Job back everything he had but double. But that doesn't necessarily take away the pain and suffering that he had. Maybe you guys have heard the verse Romans 8:28 before, and it goes, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Usually when we hear that verse, we think God will make everything perfect and he'll make my life happy. But that's not necessarily the case. This verse doesn't mean that our lives will just have a happy and perfect ending, just like a Disney movie. But what it does mean is that God is willing to walk with us through the difficult times. He's not just going to snap his fingers and take us out of the difficult times, but he's going to be a partner with us as we go through our hardest parts of life. In talking about Job's story, the word redeem kind of comes to mind. What does it mean to redeem something? You can't think of like when you take a coupon somewhere and you redeem an award, you redeem a discount. To redeem something is to reclaim or to repurpose it, to make it new, to make it better. And God is doing this in our lives all the time through so many different areas. And a story from my life, I'm fortunate to have lived through a ton of like really bad things. But the biggest stories of redemption I think I have are in my romantic life, right? They always say experience is what you get when you didn't get what you wanted. So I always say I have a lot of girl experience then. But most of like my biggest like breakups or heartaches, I remember thinking, why would God let this happen? Why would he allow this person to say this to me or for me to go through this? And a lot of it, I didn't realize that on the other side, he was actually doing a lot of work there. He was preparing me for something different, for someone different. But at that stage of my life, I thought I knew what was right for me, but it actually wasn't. This wasn't the person I was supposed to be with. And, I guess in that story, like I can be like, oh, and now I married Elaine and life is perfect. And, life is not perfect. I am really glad that I married Elaine and not anyone else that I had previously dated. But like that story kind of has like a happy ending. It has like another side to it. But I think there will be times in life where something just happens and there's not a great reason for it. There's never, like it's going to take some work and some time to find the redemptive quality that God is working through it. But I guarantee you, even if the thing that you went through is so bad and so terrible and you just can't imagine like that you're going through this, knowing that God is still with you walking is a good thing. And although there's still going to be times of sadness, really long nights and hard times, God is still there. And I think he gives us glimpses of light and glimpses of love through other people, through friendships, through relationships, through nature, through a lot of different things. And he's just communicating to us that he still loves us. I don't think it was ever God's design to have us go through these difficult times in life. I've heard it said perhaps the best thing you can do as a Christian, what it really means to be a Christian, is to seek out God in the darkest areas of your life, the areas where you feel like he is most absent. And what you'll find is that God is actually working a ton in that area. You just might not see it yet. So keep looking for those redemptive qualities. We may not be able to avoid pain and we may not be able to avoid suffering. But what we can know and what we can be promised is that God is redeeming all areas of our life, even if we can't see it all the time right now. And when God redeems our stories, it brings us a couple things. It helps us to know God better. It can help us to make the world a better place. And it can help us become more like Jesus in who we are. If you're going through suffering or a hard time and you understand why any of this is happening, I hope that you don't take the perspective of Job's friends and try to look for areas in your life that caused this. But I hope that you kind of arrive at this fact, and I really want you to hear this. I hope that you'll learn to trust that knowing the God who created you and loves you is much more important than knowing why this thing might be happening in your life. We may not know how everything is going to work out, or even if everything will work out, but we do know that we are walking with the Redeemer of this world who loves us, and that is a very good thing. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight, and I hope that you found this to be kind of fun, a good break in your day. And be sure to tune back in with us on Sunday, where we'll have another meeting online like this. And after this video is over, we're going to break into our Google Hangout small groups, and if you'd like to be added to that, go ahead and message me with your Gmail information, and we'll get you plugged into one of those. Stay tuned for more, and we'll kind of keep on doing stuff like this until the coronavirus is gone. Thank you, and have a good rest of your day.